Ladies and gentlemen, sports fans alike, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. One of the couple, two, three best podcasts around. So sit back, grab yourself a cold one and a Polish sausage, park your keister in the French room, and listen to Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose. As long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. This is your host, Sean. Going to start off with a word from our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. Next game, Friday, December 26th versus the Iowa Wild. Puck drops at 7 p.m. The Ice Hogs return home from a 6-game swing on the road to take on the Wild at the BMO. Fans 21 and over can come out early for another Blues Flame Lounge pregame party where they can enjoy free appetizers, live music, drink specials. Doors open at 5:15 p.m. with tickets starting at just $8. It's fun for the whole family. Check it out at icehogs.com. I can't even come up with words to describe just how upsetting this Chicago Bears team is. And I'm going to start with the Bears first, and we're going to have our friend Gary on the show in a little later. But we have to get through this just monstrosity, terrible, awful team and their pathetic play before we get into anything else. And I can't even put it into words. It almost seems like Mark Trestman doesn't want to quit, so he's going to force them to fire him. That's what it really seems like in these games. The defense is trying, but they have no secondary, and they can't always get a pass rush there. They have no linebacking help. The offense is just pathetic and it's penalty ridden. I don't even know what else to say. This is just a pathetic team, and the special teams is just atrocious. And I want to put this into perspective. Is we had one of, if not the best special teams coordinator for many years in Dave Tobe. We are used to stellar special teams play the last X number of years. Dave Tobe goes, and we replace him with Joe DeCamillis. Joe DeCamillis was almost the Bears head coach. Phil Emery almost hired him to be the head coach, and he's a pathetic special teams coordinator. Can you imagine how bad this team would be if he was the head coach? It's infuriating. So where do we start? Going into this game, the Saints are 5-8, Bears are 5-8. Bears are at home. It's a home game for the Bears. And you have the Saints who are in equal dysfunction. They've got starters being benched. They've got their head coach calling players for individual meetings. And they've got just things crumbling around them. They're a national spotlight for the wrong reason as well. You have the Bears in equal dysfunction with a quote anonymous source talking about the teams being upset about their decision and having buyer's remorse about re-signing Jay Cutler to that huge contract. And then Aaron Cromer, the offensive coordinator, comes out and says, oh yeah, I'm the unnamed source. I'm the anonymous source. And then breaks down in tears talking about how sorry he is. Let's get to this. I don't want to beat this to death because it's already been beaten to death by every single other person in the media. But if you mean it and you are not happy about his play and that's the facts, is stand up and own it. Say, hey, listen, I said it. I shouldn't have said it in public, but guess what? It's true. We got to deal with it. And Jay Cutler, he took the money. He's got to perform or eat all of the crap that comes along with sucking with under a big contract. That's just the reality of the NFL. And if you can't handle it, then you shouldn't be playing. So if Jay Cutler's not happy with the criticism that he's getting for playing poorly under this huge contract, then he should give the money back and go and retire. That's just the bottom line. Or he can suck it up and get better. Those are really the only two options that are available. So let's talk about the game. Going into it, it's chilly in Chicago. It's middle December. It's not cold, but it's chilly. We got a rain. It's already probably the worst field in the NFL, and it's muddy. So logic should tell you that the Saints' high-scoring offense should be slowed down a little bit. And to be fair, it was in the opening parts of the game. Both teams had a hard time hanging on to the ball. But you have the Saints, and they're able to overcome. So what are we seeing in this game? Let's go Bears offense. It's just like a circus with how ridiculous the penalties are. You have multiple times in a game, wide receivers are being called for false start penalties. And that just shouldn't happen at all, let alone more than once in a game. The wide receiver just watches for the ball to be snapped and then goes. There should be no reason for them to start moving early. It just shouldn't happen. That's just poor coaching, poor discipline. Is you don't have these guys ready to go. You don't have them understanding what they're supposed to be doing, and you're not correcting mistakes. And you have an offensive line that's just crumbling right there. They've already switched out multiple players. They can't communicate. Nobody knows who they're supposed to be blocking. There's one play where they had a blitzer coming up the A gap, and Kyle Long olayed one, and at first I was really upset, but then I went back and looked, and he took the man he was supposed to take, but two guys came through the same hole, and he took one on, hoping that somebody picked up the other one, and nobody picked him up. Nobody called them out. Nobody identified the blitzer. That should be the quarterback's job. The offensive line should be communicating with themselves. There's just no communication. There's no accountability. This is just a poorly coached team. You have routes where guys just can't get open. You've got your offensive line being shoved back into the pocket. You've got a quarterback that refuses to roll out of the pocket even though he's quite athletic. And you've got a running back who's right now is by far and away your best offensive weapon. And up until today, you didn't really want to ride him. Like, that's just stupid play calling. You script your first 15 plays, and they're quite possibly the worst 15 plays that you had. How does that even happen? The whole purpose of scripting the first 15 plays is, in a West Coast style offense, is you want to get your quarterback in a rhythm. You want to have these plays that you've practiced. You know what you're doing. You want to feel comfortable out there. You want to get in a groove, get some momentum going. And I can't remember the last time that they had successful first 15 plays. It just doesn't happen, and that says a lot about Mark Trestman. I mean, Mel Tucker's terrible and is going to go. Aaron Cromer terrible and is going to go. Joe DiCamillo is terrible and has to go. What reason do you have to keep Mark Trestman? Switching over to the defense is you've got two defensive ends that are playing well. You've got some defensive tackles that are playing well, but you just have no linebacking help. You've got a defensive coordinator who can't design a blitz to save his life. You've got banged up secondary. Kyle Fuller looked like a world beater the first half of the season. The second half, he's beat to hell. He's got all kinds of injuries, and he just looks like a lame duck out there now. And I'm hoping that is just nagging injuries mounting up, and having a whole off season to recuperate is gonna bring him back to where he was, rather than just ending up as a bust. I don't think that's the case. I'm hoping getting back to being healthy is going to bring back the Kyle Fuller we saw. We have poor coverages. You have blown coverages. You have, on the one touchdown, I believe it was the Marcus Colston touchdown, is you have your cornerback, and he's defending the outside, defending against the wide receiver, turning and going towards the corner of the end zone. When you do that, that leaves the middle of the field open. And so if you're going to play that way, you have to have your safety come in and make that play in the center of the field or in the center of the end zone. And the Bears' free safety just didn't do it. So you have a guy that it looks like he's wide open, but really what it is it's a blown coverage by your safety. The cornerback was defending the outside. And you have so many of these blown coverages. I don't know how Mel Tucker can wake up in the morning and it's even more atrocious that you have Mark Trestman keep saying we had a good week of practice. If your team every week has no communication, doesn't know what each other is doing, you're blowing plays left and right, you're penalty ridden, how can you say you had a good week of practice? Because those are the things that you work on in practice. So if the things you work on in practice you can't do on game day, then you didn't have a good week of practice. What you had was a practice that you don't know how to run. And for that reason alone, that you can't differentiate what's a good practice and what's a bad practice, is Mark Trestman's got to go. I mean, there's no point in really talking about this game because it was another blowout loss at home, and another blowout loss at home on a national stage. This wasn't a local regional game like it was a Sunday at noon. This was Monday Night Football. You have the whole country watching this game. This is what you put out on the field. If you're the McCaskey family, how can you not be embarrassed by what your team is doing? How can you not be embarrassed? If you're Phil Emery, how can you not be embarrassed? Your coaching staff. How can you go in there after this season and not clean house? I mean, you didn't make a move after your bye week. You didn't make a move. And now we're at the end of the season and you're not making a move either. If you're Phil Emery, that just speaks volumes. And if you're the McCaskey family, you've got two choices here. Is you can either clean house and show that everyone that you mean business, or if you keep people and give them another year, what you're saying is that you're being cheap and you don't want to pay the money. You're going to live with your mistake to ride out the contracts. And that, if that happens, shame on you, McCaskey family. This team needs just to be completely blown up and start from scratch. It's not an easy process, and you're going to need a new GM. I don't dislike Phil Emery. He's bungled way too many things. He would be a great as a head scout, but he's just not going to be a general manager. In between his coaching choices, the way he went about hiring a coach is you have the reigning coach of the year and you ask him to do a mock interview to see how he's going to perform in interviews after the games. He's the reigning coach of the year. Just go and look at the film of him actually having a press conference. Don't be stupid. That's stupid. Like, fine, do it for Mark Trestman because he's never had to do it. Nobody's watching in Canada. But when you have a coach that's the reigning coach of the year, you don't ask him to do these stupid things because he's already a good coach. Just shut up and hire him. Instead, he's leading another team to the best record in the NFC. So that's what you get. That's what you get for trying to be the smartest guy in the room. It doesn't work out. Trestman, I don't even know what to say about him. And the only thing I can be glad for is if they're going to be bad this year, you might as well lose out on all the games to get a better draft pick. And it sucks to say that, but this isn't going to be as deep of a draft as last year, so you're not going to be able to just pull out some amazing players in the 15th, 20th pick like you did last year. You're going to have to really work to get these really good players, and you're going to have early picks. So take the early pick, take the loss. I mean, it's not like you're going to beat Detroit anyway. So you've got you've got a game against Detroit left, and you're not going to win that one. And you got one more against the Vikings. May as well lose that one as well. Let them move up the hurt a rival team, like a division rival team, hurt their draft stock and make them move up a few picks. So let them beat you. Who cares anymore? You're already a bad team. You're not saving any coaches' jobs. This is just a lame duck team waiting for a new head coach and new management. I don't even know what else to say, but if you want to rant, you want to let loose, and you want to talk about the Bears, hit us up at swerskisports.com. We've got the email address on there. We've got a Google Voice line, so you can call in and leave a message. We could play that on the air. We've also got the Twitter at Swerski Sports, Facebook.com/Swerski Sports, and leave your comments there. And we can discuss our sorrow over how bad the Bears are and our anger at how stubborn they're being about making any sorts of changes. That's all I really want to say about the Bears. I just feel disgusted by the whole thing. So that's going to be it. We're going to end this segment, and then we're going to talk some more Chicago sports with our friend Gary. All right, so you haven't been on in a while, so welcome to the show, Gary.
Hey, Sean.
I know we're both excited because I'm much more of a hot stove league guy than you are, but with both teams making some serious moves, I think you are starting to get into the season.
Serious moves? What are you talking about?
Well, both teams have been up to some good stuff.
You mean the Bulls and the Blackhawks?
Oh, yeah. I mean, they're up to some good stuff, too, but I was talking about the Cubs and the White Sox.
I thought we were talking about winter sports. We're talking about summer sports now?
Summer sports, because it's the winter is the winter hot stove league.
Ah. Oh, you mean some things happened the last week or two that benefited both our teams?
They did.
Oh. What happened?
I mean, the White Sox signed some guy who did steroids, and the Cubs signed some guy that Boston got rid of but wanted back. Something like that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I did hear about those. Yeah, you know what? Actually, I know I'm joking, but you should know I'm joking. You know what song keeps going in my head right now? And I don't know if it's going in your head right now, but it should. You know, from Great America, they had those commercials with that fake old guy, and you hear that song.
Yeah, I know that song.
So that song keeps ringing in my head when I think about the White Sox offseason. And I think you should be, it should be the same song in your head when you think about the Cubs offseason and how good they've both been.
Oh, it's been. I mean, I'm not sure if you heard that episode, but I went through like point by point of what I thought the Cubs should do to be much more competitive in the offseason, and one of them was to sign John Lester. The other one was to either sign Russell Martin or bring in a much better, more experienced catcher, get a veteran bat in. But I proposed a trade that you maybe could to move
one of your prospects.
No, I was thinking moving bad contract for bad contract, and you could trade a certain bad hitting or bad pitching bad pitching contract
Edwin Jackson
for somewhere along the way for a bad hitting contract.
So
Carlos Beltran.
so with Montero, I've kind of told you my opinion of Montero. I like Montero. I'm just not a fan of that contract that he has. So it's good that the Cubs are getting him. They can afford to spend the money on him now. But I think paying a catcher over $10 million a year for 3 years is a little too pricey for me. Unless you're Yadier Molina, of course.
Well, I mean, statistics wise, on statcorner.com, Miguel Montero is the best framing catcher in baseball, ahead of Yadier Molina and Buster Posey.
Yeah, but I mean, that offense has been not. He did have 72 ribbies last year, and I know a lot of people say that would have been second most on the Cubs and all that. That doesn't, like, as a baseball fan, I don't know if that makes me feel better.
But it'll be a big improvement, because if on the same statistics, you know who the second to last catcher is on that list?
Castillo.
So, and then if you compare stats, I mean, Wellington Castillo is not hitting the ball particularly well either. So even if you even up the trading or the hitting stats, you're improving by having a better catcher.
And I do think you are definitely improving, but the cost is what I keep coming back saying, I don't know if I'd pay this guy $10 million. Heck, we wouldn't even pay AJ Pierzynski $10 million, $8 million. He left, So, I mean,
the way I look at it is, what other options did they have? They don't have. You don't want to speed up. You don't want to speed up the progression of your minor league catchers. And
no, I get it.
And
hey, Josh Fagley was available. Just saying, could have gotten that.
So you're stuck in a position of either going into the season with Baker and Castillo, or actually going out and getting a very good catcher. And you overpaid. Nobody wants to pay that kind of money for a catcher. But
just ask Minnesota.
He's not so much a catcher as he's a hitter that plays catcher. It's kind of like Mike Piazza did.
Not anymore. Now he's a first baseman that's vastly overpaid and vastly underproductive.
So it's one of those things that they felt like they have to go all in because they got the pitcher they wanted and they got the manager they wanted. And they sort of have to, and they didn't get the catcher that they did want, so they had to go to option B.
So I guess the last thing I'll say about that, like, I do want to preface by, as a baseball fan, I think you definitely upgraded. But sort of like going all in this year, would you, like, I kind of question that. I think you're building for not this year, but next year. Because you need your rookies or young guys to develop a little more. And particularly when you get Chris Bryant and Russo and all that stuff.
Yeah, but the thing is, with this year, it's to break the stigma, establish a winning environment, and sending a message to the Cardinals.
But you already did that by getting Lester.
Yeah, but
what happened a day later. So I agree with you, but I guess, like, unless you're thinking that you're trying to win this year, taking on those kind of contracts is always a gamble. And maybe they're not. Maybe they're like, we'll just waste. This year we want Montero. They want Montero to be the catcher for next year and the year after. Maybe that's their perspective. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, but who's a free agent catcher next year then?
I mean, catching. There's not many good catchers out there.
I know, that's the thing is.
Like, we were talking earlier today about Tyler Flowers, and it's like, I'm not saying he's good, but like last season he needed to prove himself that he could play in the bigs, and he did, so he deserves another season. And it is what it is. That's where 75% of teams, they just need a catcher that can play, as opposed to a catcher that is a disadvantage to the team. So I don't know. It's a hard position to get value for, I think.
And the Cubs have two catching prospects in their minor leagues, and one is is they're not sure he's going to stay a catcher, and the other one they don't know if he's going to be able to hit. So it's it's a definite position they need now.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's where I was going back to what I was saying before. Is like, do they need it now or do they need it next year? And maybe they're gambling getting it now for next year. Maybe
here's the free agent catchers for next season, just as an FYI: Chris Iannetta, Alex Avila, Deoner Navarro, Jeff Mathis, Brian Pena, Matt Wieters, Landon Powell, Corky Miller, and Coy Hill.
I would presume a lot of people are going to go after Wieters. I mean, aren't they saying he's going to be a Yankee? I mean, that's a good indication that the guy is going to be a hot commodity. Avila had one good season with Detroit, didn't he?
Maybe.
But I get what you're saying. Like, I totally don't think it's bad in general for the Cubs. I just think they're overpaying. And, I mean, they still have work to do, and they're going to have to spend money at some point. And you're going to be – I mean, you look – and I hate to – we get stuck in the idea of comparing the Cubs and Sox always. And I really – a lot of times I don't like comparing because they're going in completely different directions. I mean, they're both going up, but like the way they're doing it is completely different. Look what the White Sox have done when they got rid of that Adam Dunn contract, the Jake Peavy contract, the Alex Rios contract, the Paul Konerko contracts. I mean, just big contracts with old players. I mean, they've been spending their money really smartly. And I mean, that's the thing. It's like you were saying, trade bad contracts. Like, no, get rid of the bad contract. I mean, that's the whole Cubs thing, is they're trying to start from ground up, get rid of all the crap, and start from the ground up.
But the thing is to get rid of a bad contract it's easier said than done.
They did it. They did well. I mean, so they got rid of a contract that I don't think was a bad contract, but a lot of people did, and they just ate the money.
Which one?
Soriano. What's it? Carlos? Your what's his name? God, it's been
Zambrano?
a few years. Zambrano. Yeah, another bad contract. They just had to eat the money just to get rid of him. And that's what you do. Like,
yeah, but Edwin Jackson is a special kind of bad. I mean, Zambrano, for whatever you want to say, had the potential to go out and strike out 18 guys.
Sure.
But he was insane. And
sure.
Soriano came to the Yankees that season and helped give them a huge boost. So those were guys that still had something. Edwin Jackson's he's got nothing.
And that's just because when they signed Edwin Jackson, I didn't think it was that bad a signing. His career-wise, he wasn't that as bad as he's been for the Cubs. He's just he's your version of Adam Dunn, I guess, comparing the two.
Yeah, it's infuriating because you still have him on the hook for this season, next season, and the season after that.
I thought that was an option year.
I don't believe so.
I thought he signed a 4-year deal, and he's been in the team for 2 years.
Okay, because I'm looking at it right now on Sporttrack.com, and it's saying that he's not a free agent until 2017.
Yeah. So.
Oh wait, you know what? Because they're calling. So I'm sorry. You're right. So this season, next season, so 2017.
Yeah, so 2 more years. Yeah. I didn't know if there was an option. I just knew he had a 4-year deal. No, it is what it is. I mean, I don't know what you do with him. You have to, if you don't have a fifth starter, you put him as fifth starter and pray he doesn't lose. And if you do, then you put him in the bullpen and you just eat the money. It's not like they haven't been in a position before, or any other team hasn't either. So,
I mean, my view is, if you could trade him for somebody that has a bad contract but could actually provide something for you, then at least you're getting something out of it.
Depends what the bad contract is. If it's like Carl Crawford, I don't think you do that.
No, but something. So I was saying is a feasible option would trade him to the Yankees for Carlos Beltran.
I don't think Yankees would do that because the Yankees still have high hopes for Carlos Beltran. They still think Beltran has something left in the tank. And I think with Scherzer and Shields still out there, there's definitely better pitching options than trading for Edwin Jackson.
Oh, but the thing is Edwin Jackson at one point was an all-star. As crazy as that sounds. And
he pitched well for us. He pitched well for the White Sox. I was actually kind of upset they traded him because I thought he was good.
And my feeling about it is that if the Cubs could pull off the trade, it's equal years, equal dollars, give or take, I believe $1 million or so. So it's a pretty even swap, and maybe it's changed the scenery for Edwin Jackson and Carlos Beltran. He wouldn't be a day-to-day outfielder. He would be a spot outfielder, and he's clearly got some great postseason experience, and he's a proven winner in the postseason.
Yeah, but that goes back to, do you think the Cubs are going to compete this year or next year?
But you'd have him for 2 more years.
Yeah, won't he be like 41 or 42 then?
Yeah, but you don't need him to play every day. You need him to play every couple of days and be that guy basically what people are projecting Johnny Gomes to be.
Did he sign with the Cubs yet?
No, but people are projecting that what Johnny Gomes would provide, Carlos Beltran would be a very similar thing. A guy who is a winner in the postseason and a veteran bat, and he could go in there and be a spot outfielder.
Sure.
Because they are high on Chris Coughlin, and so Beltran's just going to spell him every couple of days.
Sure. No, I mean, they can do that, but I don't think the Yankees would do that.
It's one of those things, is sitting from my couch that works, because the Yankees do need pitching, and
they do, but they have so much money going towards their starters now. Like, I don't see them. I see them, if they're spending more money on starting pitching, they're spending it for studs. Like that CC Sabathia contract is just killing them right now. And they have Tanaka, which is good, but I mean, I just see them going out and getting a sure number 1 or number 2 type pitcher, and I don't think anyone in their right mind would think Edwin Jackson's that. Plus, they wouldn't even give Brandon McCarthy a contract, who pitched well for them.
Yeah, here we go. Beltran is a career .333 hitter in the postseason. Not bad.
No, it's good. So any other moves you expect the Cubs to do? Johnny Gomes?
Just going back to the Montero thing is, you have Kyle Schwarber, who's a couple years away, and then you've got the guy who you got from Atlanta, the Victor Caratini, who's another catching prospect, but he's even another couple years after Schwarber, and so you're, rather than fast forward or fast track Kyle Schwarber, then kind of mess his trajectory. You bring in Montero, because even if you decide that Kyle Schwarber is ready to bat in the major league level, because he's clearly going to be, his batting is going to be much more advanced than his catching ability, you could throw him in the outfield and be a corner outfielder.
Don't you wish the National League had DH?
No, I don't like DH.
There's a lot of talk about, because of the salary projections of players, that it's going to force the National League to push towards having a DH. Because players in their early 30s sign those big-time contracts, and they statistically only sign them with American League teams, because they know later on in that contract they can move to DH.
But on the double-edged sword is pitchers are getting paid a lot more money because because they're going to be facing more. I guess never mind. That's a bad analogy, but it skews pitching numbers though.
I get where you were going with, but I think the pitching salary is just increasing in general. I don't know if it has anything to do with that.
I mean, I know it's one of those things that the National League is eventually going to adopt the DH. I won't be happy when it happens.
And honestly, it'll be done because of financial reasons.
Oh,
it'll be done because teams are going to be. If you sign that Albert Pujols type player to a 10-year contract, knowing that he's only going to give about 5 years of it, and the rest be in like just hitting, and hope that he can be like 60% of what he once was, just to have those 5 great years, that still fills seats. Konerko didn't do anything for the White Sox last year, but he was still a fan favorite. Not that anyone went to Sox games, but maybe that was a bad example. But in general, like the older, like if it's a favorite player, there's a lot of merchandising behind it. There's a lot of pluses to having that guy long term, and that's a lot of money that these National League teams are losing. Not to mention the American League getting the edge in competition in general. I mean, you look at what's happened in the last few years with interleague. It's been mainly American League dominating. So, I mean, there might be a year where National League wins more games than American League, but overall, in general, you see a trend of the American League winning. It's because a lot of it's because those players signed those long-term contracts in the American League. So that's why I think it'll eventually happen. And whether it's right or wrong for baseball, dude, it's about economics. It's not about baseball.
And that's the only reason baseball makes moves is money.
Yeah.
And real quick is I just pulled up stats on Montero and Castillo, and basically they had the same batting average last year, the same number of home runs, same number of strikeouts, but Montero had twice as many walks and twice as many RBIs.
And what was their WAR? You went to Baseball Reference, didn't you?
Yeah.
Go to Fangraph.
I know, but I was just looking for batting. I was just looking for standard numbers. I wasn't looking at the.
Well, at least you didn't go to ESPN. I got in an argument with some guy about Jose Quintana. How Jose Quintana had like a 5.2 WAR or something like that, and he was arguing with me that no, Jose Quintana only had a 3.5, and he was using some ESPN WAR statistic to do that, and like that's not that whatever that was, that's not the like proper way to determine WAR. So at least you're not going to ESPN.
All right, let's see. So Castillo had a 0.8 WAR, and Miguel Montero had a 2.7 WAR.
Okay.
So
that's an upgrade.
So pretty much two game upgrade.
Yeah. No, that's a good upgrade from a team perspective. If you putting money aside.
Yeah. So, I mean, they have the money, and they want to.
Oh, by the way, you just reminded me of something. Not to interject. Speaking of money, any Cub fan who is applauding Tom Ricketts for opening up his pockets needs to just stop. The reason why they went out and signed Lester had everything to do with the fact that they're putting their signage up next year.
Oh yeah, I've said that
extra income.
Yeah, they have. They're putting signs up, and the income stream is coming, and they're going to have the new TV contracts coming. They want to have a product on the field that's enticing because it's when the money's going to be coming in. So of course,
Tom Ricketts. I'm sorry. People would say Jerry Reinsdorf's cheap. Quite honestly, Jerry Reinsdorf has a really bad rap because he's not cheap. He'll go out and spend money if he sees that he should. Particularly this year has been amazing. And the funny thing is,
will he go over the luxury? The luxury cap?
No, he'll never go over luxury tax. Right. So yeah, so he's still somewhat cheap. But like, and even this year I've been amazed at how much he spent. And then I sent you a text before. I was like, he still spent less money than Cubs did for one player. And I know you said an ace lefty is really hard to find. But so maybe Reinsdorf is cheap. I'm not really giving a good example of him not being cheap. But you know what? Tom Ricketts is pretty cheap. Let's not sugarcoat that. Tom Ricketts he will not invest his own money. He's a smart businessman, and once with that extra revenue coming in, then that's when he's going to increase payroll. And the fact that they haven't lowered ticket prices is a clear indication that he's not cheap. You guys went through 4 years of bad baseball, and they didn't once lower ticket prices. It was horrible.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
Sure, you can get on like StubHub someone for like $20, and you're like, oh, I get friends saying, oh, I went to the game for $20. I'm like, yeah, somebody lost money on that.
Oh yeah, I mean,
You know?
it's like Bears tickets. You can get tickets for the game against the Saints for like $40, but you know what? It's not what they cost. It's somebody is eating the money because they want to get something back.
Yeah. So I mean, if he weren't cheap, he would have lowered his ticket prices. And okay, back to Reinsdorf, he did lower his ticket prices, so he's not that cheap.
But you know what? It's really hard to compare the White Sox and the Cubs because they're two. Even though they're both baseball teams in Chicago,
Yeah.
they're two different animals because the Cubs have a built-in audience that are going to come to the games, and if the
Not just that,
if the White Sox
generates so much more revenue.
but if the White
It's not
Sox
close.
if the White Sox could, they would, even when they're terrible, they would keep the ticket prices high. But it's just a different animal. They have to do what they have to do to make their revenue, whereas the Cubs have the luxury of having this audience that's going to come in, and people that come from out of town that don't even like baseball or give a crap about Chicago sports are going to go because they want to go and drink in the sun. And so
No, you're completely right on that. So I'll go back to what I said before. Maybe Reinsdorf isn't cheap, or is cheap. Anyways, no, you're right. I just hate, us as fans. We shouldn't have to go through what you guys went through. Like the White Sox, they're never a great team. Let's be honest. They're never stacked. They're never. But every year or two they're competitive. 3 years ago they were competitive. Robin's first year, and like that should be a standard, in my opinion, for any large market-esque baseball team. Is you should not go through 3+ years of bad baseball, and no matter what, like there's no excuses.
okay. Can I put a situation in there and maybe you change your tune?
Sure.
The current Philadelphia Phillies, where they've got some bad contract, and
they're trying to change. They're trying. But no one wants the contract.
I'm so surprised that they were able to get rid of Jimmy Rollins, but they're not going to be able to move Ryan Howard. He's just unmovable.
They're not going to move Howard, and they're not going to be able to move Hamill because they're going to want so much in return for Hamill, which rightfully so, by the way. No, I mean, but Philadelphia,
and their cupboards in the minor leagues are bare, and they're maxed out on their contracts. What they can, they can spend as a baseball club.
Well, that's bad. That's bad upper management not thinking about the future and putting all their eggs in one basket and saying, let's make this happen and not worry about 3-4 years from now.
Yeah, and so, but where do they go from here? Is somehow they have to replenish the minor leagues and shed those bad contracts,
or they shed the bad contracts. Either they run out or they trade them, and then just overpay for other people, kind of like what the Red Sox do. The Red Sox are and this is what pisses me off about the Red Sox. They have a good minor league system too. On top of that, they get bad contracts, and then they find ways to get rid of those bad contracts, and then just get other contracts to, like, they were horrible this year, and then look how much they spent in the offseason. I'm pretty sure the Red Sox will be batting for a playoff spot next year.
Yeah, but they have, I don't know where, they have a lot of money, and some teams just aren't able to do that. And I mean, Philadelphia theoretically should be able to spend a huge amount of money, but
and the Cubs should too, and technically the White Sox if they had a better fan base, and the Dodgers and the Angels. I mean, we're talking about big market teams that should be able to do this on a consistent basis.
I mean,
that's how the Yankees do.
The Cubs are a little bit different because they have an amount that they can spend because of their debt ratio, but part of it is that, and part of it is Rickett wants to line his pockets as much as possible after buying the team. But the team's value has gone up nearly $1 billion since he's purchased it.
Yeah, and I won't be surprised if he sells in 5 years.
If they win, I wouldn't be surprised.
Especially if they win a World Series, yeah.
He'll be the guy that won the World Series. Sell it, take his cash, and peace out. But
because it's only downhill from there, right?
Yeah.
No, I agree. No, the economic side of baseball. You know this always frustrates me. I don't understand. Look at other sports who flourish with salary caps and salary mins. You look at all three of the other major sports and how entertaining they are, right? As a fan, when you go, well, not the Bears this year, but in football in general, of course, when you go to a sporting event, it is a huge deal for any of those three. Baseball, and maybe it's also because there's 162 games in a season. It's just, you know, the Yankees are going to be there. You know, the Red Sox are going to be there. You know, the Dodgers are going to be there. And maybe you'll see Cinderella stories like what we saw this year with Kansas City and San Francisco, and that's cool. Maybe your team could be it as well. But you know, the other teams are always going to be there. And you know, without a cap or a min, the economics just doesn't. Unless you're a major market team like the Cubs, the economics just don't do well.
And I think part of that hard cap needs to be a hard floor as well.
Oh, I agree. Like, what hockey has it so right. Like, you have to spend a certain amount of money. And I mean, you can't be like the Marlins who dump salary and have a $30 million payroll. Like, you cannot do that. So, but let's get back to about the fun stuff about what happened last week.
Sure. So you asked if the Cubs had any other moves coming, and I expect them. You know, they've been talking about having some sort of veteran bat, and if all the rumors are true, it's going to be Johnny Gomes. And after that, there'll be some trades. I'm sure they're going to trade Wellington Castillo because they'll actually get something for him, even though he's not a good hitter and not a good batter. He's under contract. He's under contract. He's arbitrate. He's under team control for another couple years, so he's very low cost, and he's at least a starter caliber. So they'll get something for him, and they'll probably trade Travis Wood.
They need to do what they need to get some more bullpen. And I know they got a couple guys that had a good season last year, but I mean, bullpen's everything in baseball, especially when it comes to playoffs. So if I were a Cubs fan, I'd be looking for them to trade Castillo or some of their mid-tier prospects for some bullpen help. So, and that would make a really good offseason for the Cubs, I think.
Yeah, it would. It would be nice to be able to pick up some bullpen. I think that's what they're going to do. Is they're going to try to trade and pick up some additional help there rather than low level prospects, because they've got a pretty stacked minor league system.
Yep. Hold on one sec. My wife just came into the room. Ruining everything. No, that's fine. Sean's coming over for the Bulls game, right, Sean? Yeah, well.
No, we've got some friends coming later this afternoon.
What was I gonna say? So I had a friend text me after. Do you want light? A friend texted me after the Melky Cabrera trade, and he's like, "What do they do with What do White Sox do with Diane Viciedo now? Do they trade for a second baseman?" And I'm like, "No. Why would you trade for a second baseman? You have one of your top 10 prospects ready for the bigs in Micah Johnson. He's the number 4 overall prospect. Like, you trade for bullpen. You never have enough bullpen help." And I don't know. Do you want to spend a few minutes talking about the White Sox?
Absolutely.
Done. So, like, regardless of all the trades and signings they've done, I've been most impressed with how they've drastically improved their bullpen. What they've done to their bullpen, it's literally a complete 180, or in Jason Kidd's words, 360.
Oh, Jason Kidd. Better at beating your wife than using words correctly.
From what was last year. They have a couple young guys that could be solid in the bullpen that they can push down to the 6th or 7th innings now. And then they got the back end of their rotation with Dan Jennings, with Zach Duke, and David Robertson. And sure, David Robertson costs a ton of money. But and ironically, the White Sox are notorious for trading away their closers before they cost a ton of money. But you gotta love what they did. Like those alone. I mean, were just if you watched the White Sox last year and you saw how many games their bullpen blew. Their starting pitching was always decent, but that bullpen was just so bad. And I mean, they've leaps and bounds. They've moved. I mean, not by Vegas odds, of course, but from my perspective. So, what are your thoughts?
I think they've been doing a really good job. It was clearly the above and beyond. If there was a glaring hole in the White Sox last year, was the bullpen. It cost them so many games. They were they're if you gave them all of the saves, half of the saves they blew, you would have been above you would probably be above 500. So it's realistic to say if you shore that up, suddenly once you're 500, anything's possible. And then you add in another quality starting pitcher in Jeff Samardzija. You add in another quality bat in Melky Cabrera. You add in all-star first baseman that you're going to put at a DH, and and suddenly, yeah, you can
never have too many all-star first basemen. Let me just say that.
And suddenly in a division where, sure, one team went to the World Series, but they're not so dominant that you can't catch them, and then you've got the once juggernaut team of the division that's slowly crumbling, and so anything's possible in that division.
Yeah, you got to think that's what Han was looking at. I mean, the Royals squeaked into the playoffs because they did. Let's face it, they fell apart towards the end of the season and then figured things out and just got into playoffs. And they get in, they played that single game playoff, and they went on from there. It was a great story, and I like the Royals a lot, by the way.
Yeah, and it's nothing bad against them. It's just realistically, is they were a team that caught fire at the right time.
And the thing, they're losing their best pitcher. Well, this year, I think what's his name? The young stud's going to be their best. Is going to be a nice ace. I forgot his name. I'm sorry. But they're going to lose James Shields, right? It's a pretty significant loss. You lose Billy Butler, and you get what's his name? He was on the Mariners last year. He was pretty horrid. He was on the Angels for many years.
Wait, I don't know who you're talking about.
Drawing a blank. They got.
Wait, who are you talking about?
Who the Royals signed.
Oh, I haven't kept up with what the Royals do. I've been so busy with, are the Cubs going to get John Lester?
So the Royals signed basically a right fielder who sucks. Batted 210 last year and got a 2-year, $17 million contract. So that guy is replacing Billy Butler at DH probably. They still have their bullpen, so they're still going to be good. But there's definitely holes. I mean, they can't hit at all. They didn't hit last year. So there's holes in the Royals team. And yeah, like you said, Detroit, man, they're in a lot of trouble. Keeping Victor Martinez might save them from not make. I mean, they may still make the playoffs this year, but next coming few years they're definitely on a downswing. I don't know why they traded Rick Porcello for Cespedes, considering that Cespedes wants big money and he's only going to be there for a year. Why would you ever trade a guy that's like a solid number 3 for that? In my opinion, Cespedes is way overrated. Besides his arm and right.
Yeah, he's got a laser for an arm, and he can hit. But is he the guy that you want to, be trading starting pitching for?
Especially your second best pitcher last year.
Yeah. So I mean, the only thing I can think of is you sandwich him around some of those other hitters that they got, and and maybe
Sure.
that's just a murderer's row, and they're hoping to. Well, I guess they do that every year, is hoping that their pitching can keep them in games, and then the hitting can pile in runs,
Yeah.
which is
But their bullpen still
yeah.
sucks.
But so yeah, I
So
mean that's the Whites. I think what Rick Hahn is doing is going, well, you know what, we can win this division without, we don't have a juggernaut in this division. We can win this, and he wants to add enough talent that they have the ability to go on a run if
sure. If they
yeah.
do, yeah, no. I agree. I mean, their 1-2-3 is, in my opinion, is as good as anyone in baseball. And from a starting pitching perspective, um, they're 1-5 hitting wise pretty good too. So I mean, they've really upgraded 1-6 if you include LSA Ramirez. I think, and you and I were joking about the Samardzija trade, about what Oakland gave up and got for Samardzija.
Yeah, I'm going to summarize it real quick. Is I love that both of our teams completely fleeced Oakland. So, all right, Oakland traded away, and I'm going to only put it into reference of where they are in the Cubs. Is they traded away their number one minor league prospect, which is the Cubs' number two prospect, the Cubs' number 7 prospect, and Billy McKinney, a major league ready pitcher in Dan Straley, and they traded it for a half of a year of Jeff Samardzija, half of a season for Jason Hamill, and Marcus Semien, Chris Bassett, Josh Fagley, and Rangel Ravello. So they got completely fleeced.
And to their defense, I'm going to try to defend them. It's hard. You're right. They did. I think they did get fleeced, but to their defense, after they basically made a huge mistake in trading Addison Russell, they needed to get a guy to play shortstop. Marcus Semien can do that, and I was optimistic that he could be a decent role player on the White Sox. I mean, a lot of White Sox fans liked Marcus Semien. The bottom line with him, though, is excluding LSA Ramirez, he is the third best shortstop prospect or infield prospect or non-corner infield prospect. Because, you know, who knows with prospects if they end up being shortstops or second basemen. He is and you're talking about being the third best middle infield prospect for probably one of the worst minor league systems in baseball. So that's what the White Sox basically traded. And Josh Fagley, you know, he could be decent. He'll probably have a couple okay years, but I mean, he can't hit a curveball. He's a fastball hitter, and I mean, he'll strike out a lot, and he doesn't get on base a lot. And defensively, he's okay. He's not great.
And another reason to be fair with Oakland is, I think it was all for last year, and they went all in hoping to win last year, and they knew that they could. Their two options were make a deal now for Samardzija, because they're not going to be able to sign him. He's made it clear that he's going to go to free agency.
Yeah, but they should have waited. They should have waited to in my opinion, they should have waited to the All-Star break. And people say, well, that's a whole year, that, you know, that's only half year. But then you have a team like Boston who's upgraded immensely, and you got to think they're going to be trying to compete. Boston has a great farm system. I mean, they'll do exactly what that Oakland did for the Cubs, is give one of their top prospects.
The thing is what you do there is, what if he has a terrible season, or what if he gets hurt? I mean, the Cubs played that waiting game with Matt Garza, and it became a whole thing with, they knew they had to get rid of him, but he got hurt right before the trade deadline. You're just kind of stuck.
Sure.
So that's that's something you have to consider. Is
By the way, the same thing happened with my boy Beckham. Beckham was actually having a decent year last year, and he got injured and didn't come back till after the trade deadline, and so that's why they did the infamous August trade with him.
yeah. So it's
You know,
it's not a guarantee that they're healthy. I mean, ideally, you'll get the most for him in a playoff push, especially if you can pit two rivals against each other, where they know they have to overpay in order for them to get him, and B, for their rival to not get him. That's an ideal situation.
let's be honest, because the White Sox also got a pitching prospect in the trade. I don't know if you knew that.
Oh yeah,
They also
Michael, you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Well, he hasn't done well in the minors, but he's got a lot of upside from what I read up on him. Whatever, he's a young guy who can throw hard. Like, fine. Um, but you have to think they could have gotten more than Micah Johnson, Josh Fagley, and Chris Bassett,
Oh, absolutely.
even with a half a year rental. So
Yeah. So the both teams made out really well on that, and so you guys have a really quality pitcher, and I can't imagine if
they sign
Carlos
him.
Rodon is what they say he is, and he does come up this season, that means that Jeff Samardzija is your number 4, and I can't imagine, off the top of my head, I can't think of a better number 4 pitcher in all of baseball.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's exciting. It's really, really exciting to think about, and I think that's what Rick Hahn is trying to sell Samardzija right now, is like you're really talking about like a rotation, a top 4 rotation, similar to those Baltimore rotations in the early '70s, or the Atlanta rotations in the '90s. Like, you're talking about any one of those guys could win 20 games, on a good team. It's fun to think about. It really is. And you know me, I was joking with you texting earlier. Like, I'm trying not to be Gary. I'm trying to be Sean and be optimistic.
And there's a lot of reason to be optimistic. I mean, I think you think I'm blindly optimistic, but I mean, I know the reality is that just top prospects don't necessarily translate to top pros, but there's certain guys that.
Certain guys, and
like Chris Bryant, if he fails at the major league level, everybody in the whole world is going to be shocked. I mean, nobody's saying he's going to be Ted Williams, but if he is not clobbering 30-plus home runs in the major league level, batting .275, people are going to be shocked.
Yeah, I agree with that. And like, even when Chris Sale was coming up, it was like, if he doesn't blow his arm out, he's going to be untouchable. Like, that was the MO on him, was that with his arm angle and how he throws, could he not sustain injuries? But when Chris Sale Rodon is like literally following the exact same blueprint of what Sale did, just mull through the minors.
Yeah, and he's a really talented guy, and if barring any sort of injury, he's going to be up in your rotation, and I mean they'll probably move him to. Well, they're not gonna put 3 lefties in a row. Samardzija is probably gonna pitch third.
Yeah,
but
the way I see it, it's gonna be. I mean, Danks is gonna be number 5, right?
Probably.
So they're gonna have Sale, Samardzija, Quintana, Noesi, and Danks, if that does happen.
Yeah, because you don't want to.
Oh, wait, I didn't even say Rodon. Sorry, I don't know what they're gonna have to get rid of Danks.
Well, I mean, I don't think Rodon's gonna be opening day roster. If for nothing else, even if he's ready, they're gonna do the thing that the Cubs are gonna do with Bryant and wait 6 weeks, so they keep another year of arbitration eligibility.
Unfortunately, they have to do that because Scott Boras is his agent.
Yeah, and
so they don't have a choice.
Yeah, and And then there's a double-edged sword on that as well, is because if you do that, is you get a situation like the Nationals are having right now with Bryce Harper, where he's pissed that how they're dealing with him, so he didn't show up to the Fan Fest and he filed a grievance against the Nationals.
He's not going anywhere.
Oh, he's not going anywhere, but
they'll throw a ton of money at him. Like he can be pissed all he wants. He's not going anywhere. They'll be so stupid to let him go. So
it's a situation that not everybody's going to sign a team-friendly contract.
Like everyone seems to be doing for the White Sox.
I don't know what.
And the Cubs.
Yeah, I mean, I can't be too mad because Castro and Rizzo signed very team-friendly contracts. I mean, Rizzo's making like $5 million a year, and he's clobbering 30 home runs and batting 285.
Let me give you some. I'm sure you know these stats already, but let me give you some stats on Sale and Quintana. Sale's not eligible to be a free agent until 2020. The most the White Sox are going to pay him in his contract is like $72 million.
That's ridiculous.
Quintana, same thing. I think 2019. It's like 40 million with options. It's so, or 40 something. Like those contracts that they signed. I mean, and you gotta love Sale's perspective. He's like, whatever, I don't need to make a lot of money. I get paid enough. Let's go on pitch. At least I got the security. That's what I wanted.
Yeah. So here we go. Is if you're on Fangraphs and you rank first baseman by their last year's WAR, Anthony Rizzo is number 1 in baseball with a 5.6 WAR, and he's making $5 million. Number 2, Miguel Cabrera. He's making much more than $5 million.
29.
Yeah, like when we don't get down to Albert Pujols until 8th, and before him is Adrian Gonzalez. Those two guys are making a metric poop ton of money.
It's smart baseball. Like you pay the guy when they're young. Say, here's the financial security that you're going to get. Because you don't know what the future holds. The guy could turn out to be a bust. And he was borderline for starting Castro for a couple of years. He was borderline thinking that this was a bad contract. Last year he recovered, which was good for you guys. But I mean, yeah, no.
Or you could have a Ryan Howard situation where his WAR was in the negatives, and he's making $21 million a year.
Yeah. Or Adam Dunn. He was pretty down too. Wasn't he like -3 or something that year? He batted 150.
Yeah, he was bad.
No, but it also opens up doors to sign a David Robinson for $46 million. They can do that because their teams. I mean, the White Sox team salary with all the money they spent this offseason is barely over $100 million. It's almost laughable when you think about 2 years ago, it was over $100 million in the contracts that the White Sox had. So, I mean, and same for the Cubs. They're able to spend that money on Lester because they got all these guys under control for many years.
I mean, when you're able to turn around the career of a Jake Arrieta, who was a really talented guy, got to change of scenery and put to fruition that talent, and you've got him under a good contract. I mean, I think he's only going to make $4 million or something this year.
Yeah, I got a buddy who's an Orioles fan. He's like, Cubs are fooled on Arrieta. I'm like, well, then I am too, because he's had a season and a half of pretty good baseball for the Cubs.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even like fluky. I mean, sometimes you watch a guy and he's winning and it's fluky, and you just watch Arrieta and he just goes out there and it's consistent.
He dominates. Yeah, no, he pitches well. Like I think he's a solid number 3.
And he's also a guy that he was a top prospect coming out of when it came to the minor league draft. And so it's not like he snuck up on anybody. He was a guy that had talent and
underachieved. Yeah.
And that's what people are paying Justin Masterson for.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what they're doing is they
he got so He has such a horrible year last year, and he got such a big contract for a 1 year
Yeah, and
deal.
that's basically what people are doing is they're hoping that they can they can get a guy in that's gonna finally perform.
Well, Mesternson performed a couple years ago. He was pretty good. But so we've been talking for a while now about baseball. We're both pretty high right now. We're drinking the juice. Would you agree with that? We're both drinking the. I'm on the train for my team doing well next year, juice.
Yeah, I'm not like I said this morning when at your son's birthday party, I said, "Oh, it's gonna be a Cubs Sox World Series," and that was me being making jokes, but I'm perfectly fine drinking a little bit of Kool-Aid because the teams aren't just throwing money out there; they're throwing money at the right players.
And even those older players that you're like that in the case of like the White Sox, you sign a Melky Cabrera, you sign an Adam LaRoche, they're short-term contracts. They're not these 5, 6, 7 year contracts for a guy who's in his past 30. Like, it's great. Um, I, I, I mean, I'm sure Melky could have gotten 4 years somewhere. The White Sox paid a little more just to have him for only 3 years. I mean, it's just what they're doing is they're building to win in the near future, and to not be Philadelphia and kind of screw themselves for the far future.
Yeah, and
So
and need. I mean, I think the White Sox are closer to being done than the Cubs are, but I mean, both
I thought I thought they were done before they got
that one
Melky.
came out of nowhere. Every other.
Well, no, you heard rumors. Like for the last couple of weeks there were rumors about Melky, the Sox interested in Melky, but you're like, he's gonna sign. The Mariners will pay a lot more money for him than the Sox. Sox don't have a lot of money in there that they want to spend. They've fulfilled most of their needs. They restructured their bullpen. They got three bottom of the bullpen were guys. They're like that they're fine. They don't, maybe we'll live with Viciedo. Maybe we'll trade him and try someone else out and left. It's definitely a hole, but it's not like the end of the world. And then there's like, boom, let's just go out and get Melky Cabrera. Make it official. This season was the best of any team in baseball.
Yeah, that's awesome, and there's still rumblings that the Cubs are, the White Sox. I'm sure are going to try to add a little bit more bullpen help because that bullpen was bad. Adding a few arms in there that are good is going to make it better by averaging out, but that never hurts to add more bullpen arms.
Well, the good thing about that is now they have the flexibility to do it by trade, where they'd actually decrease their salary, because Viciedo is going to get about $5 million next year.
Yeah.
So that's where it's really smart. It's like they're actually going to be not spending as much money as you would think on Melky, because they're saving money by not having Viciedo. So I don't know. It's smart baseball.
And the Cubs are going to be able to add things because of the trade pieces with Wellington Castillo and Travis Wood, and they've and apparently the Phillies are really interested in Travis Wood. I mean, maybe that could be a trade piece.
Yeah, I've always liked Wood since he started pitching for the Cubs. I think he's. I mean, I think he's a good 4 or 5 pitcher that doesn't come too expensive.
Yeah,
so, I don't know. I'm high on Wood.
I like Wood as well. I mean,
sorry.
Just in general, because I was pulling up that article that was talking about how the Phillies are.
So wait. In general, you like Wood?
Oh yeah, I love Wood. Oh.
Okay, got
it. Is in that article where it's talking about the Phillies are really interested in trading for Travis Wood. It has their guaranteed contracts. They owe Ryan Howard $60 million through 2016. They owe Cliff Lee $37.5 million for this season. 37.5.
To the Phillies' defense, they couldn't possibly have imagined Ryan Howard would have declined as quickly and as badly as he did.
As to the degree he has, no, but I think most people not drinking the Kool-Aid knew it was silly to give a guy that fat that much money because it's really like he's aging faster than somebody that's
but you figure so like here I'm actually gonna be contrary to everything I've said about Adam Dunn. Adam Dunn actually did stuff, like produced his last couple of years with the White Sox. He hit 40 home runs 2 years ago. So, like, you would think, even though the decline is there would be something still, something in the tank where 20-something home runs, maybe like 80-something ribbies. And yeah, his on-base percentage and WAR suck, but at least he's doing something to contribute. I mean, Ryan Howard just did he even have 15 home runs this year?
Yeah, he was just terrible. So they owe him $60 million for the next 2 seasons, $37.5 million for Cliff Lee, $96 million for Cole Hamels through 2018, $15 million for Chase Utley this year, $13 million for Jonathan Papelbon. They got rid of Jimmy Rollins. Carlos Ruiz, 17.5 over the next 2.
Wow, he sucks too. He's a guy who had one good year and banked on it.
And Marlon Byrd, $8 million. And then Miguel
Bird actually had a couple of good seasons with the Mets, right?
Yeah.
Let's see, but yeah, no, I mean, both. It's good not to be a Phillies fan. But who would ever want to be any kind of Philly fan of any of those teams? Oh, I know,
absolutely.
Come on.
Absolutely.
So I don't know. I know we talked a ton about baseball. I don't know if you wanted to just maybe spend a few minutes on the Bulls because I went to the game on Friday.
Yeah, I do. Just give me one quick second. Is the reason that the Cubs have the luxury of being able to trade Travis Wood is because he has, other than this past year, has been a pretty quality bottom of the rotation pitcher. He's a lefty.
Yeah, he's a
lefty, and he's still under team control as far as arbitration. So he's like this year he's projected to make a little under $5 million, and for a starting pitcher, that's not bad, and for a lefty. And they have you've got John Lester now. You've got Jake Arrieta. You brought back Jason Hamill. You've got Kyle Hendricks, and they just re-signed Tsuyoshi Wada, who had a really good last year. And for whatever it's worth, is you are stuck with the contract of Edwin Jackson. Yeah. So if you can't get rid of Edwin Jackson, you can at least trade a starting major league ready starting pitcher for something.
Sure, I get it. I'm a fan of Travis Wood.
I am too. I like Travis Wood. I like him as a person, and I like him as a player. And I think you lose something on him by if you put him in the bullpen and you've only got 5 starting rotation spots.
Yeah, no, I mean, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think they'll do it until you see what people look like in spring training. If he comes back to form, it's hard. You may look to trade Wada.
It's a good problem to have, nonetheless. I mean, it's bad that you can't trade Jackson, but it's a good problem to have extra starting pitching. You never know when a pitcher go down with an injury.
Yeah, absolutely.
Won't it suck if Lester goes down? That's like when PV went down, when he tore his lat, which I can't imagine how someone could do that, but he did. It was like, oh my, we just got this guy, and he's supposed to be our ace, and then he has his injury, and he's not going to come back the rest of the season. Thinking, oh, what could be worse?
Well, if the News did a teaser and they said a high-priced Chicago starting pitcher was injured and out for the season, the whole fan base collective would be on their knees going, please let it be Edwin Jackson. Please let it be Edwin Jackson.
Yeah. And then for us, it'd be, please let it be John Dinks.
So yeah, let's move on to the Bulls. I've been a little lax on covering the Bulls because there's been a lot.
Because you don't care about good teams. I get it.
I was talking about the Blackhawks. Oh,
Well, I mean, Blackhawks got off to a bad start. They're coming along now.
yeah,
But
they're a really talented team. So it's one of those things. Is every team has a slump in the season. It's just inevitable because it's a long. As long as baseball is, hockey is like half the number of games, but it's way more physical. So it's a brutal long season.
Sure.
But so
Bulls. Remember
our boy Dougie McBuckets is going to be out for a long time.
Oh, 6 to 8 weeks. Not like he was in anyways, so I mean it's not really a loss. Yeah, I mean Dougie's been out, but the other rookie that I remember talking to you about, saying how excited I was that he was coming to the Bulls,
Nikola.
you know, he's been pretty awesome. He has been everything that I predicted. Thank you. I know it's only early in the season, but he can shoot the three. He's got game. He can drive to the hole. It's pretty nice. He's strong. He plays good D, better D than I thought he would. Everything. I mean, it's kind of awesome when like Taj gets injured or Noah gets injured, and all of a sudden you throw in Nikola and they don't miss a beat.
It's still funny to hear Stacey King. Is any chance that there's a half a second where he can just yell Nikola? He takes advantage of it.
Yeah, but from a perspective of productivity, based on playing time, he plays 19, 20 minutes a game, and he gets like 15 points, 8 rebounds. I mean, when he's in there, he definitely makes his presence known. I mean, it's a lot of fun to watch. And remember, the other person I got really excited about, that the other off-season signing that I got really excited
Aaron
about.
Brooks.
Do you remember
Aaron Brooks?
Yes.
And I don't know if you heard the shows. I have some friends that do another podcast called Ball, and they were very excited about Aaron Brooks, and they've been on the Aaron Brooks train for a while, and so when I was talking with them, they were very excited about the Aaron Brooks, and then to see him play really well, and he's been a phenomenal find because
addition. Heinrich's not a point guard anymore. He's a two guard. Like if you notice, it's Brooks being the point guard.
Yeah, and of all the undersized point guards that thrive under the Tom Thibodeau regime, Aaron Brooks is probably the best one so far. And
did I not say that would
and
happen?
on top of that is he's only playing backup to a healthy Derrick Rose.
Yes, but this is why I wanted to bring that up. I think that's going to change. Not that he's still going to be coming off the bench, but the Bulls did something in the fourth quarter of the Portland game that was so effective. I can't possibly see them not doing this in the future. And that is having Brooks and Rose out at the same time. And when you have two guys that have the burst of speed that they have and the ball control that they have and the ability to pass that they have and the ability to create shots like they both have on the court at the same time, it was so great to see, because if Damian Lillard guarded Rose, Brooks was the one driving in and doing the floater city, which was my terminology for all the shots they made on Friday. If you watch the game, there were like 30 floaters, and basically between the free throw line and the basket, just one-handed tossing.
And where I get to say that I was right is when we were talking about the Bulls prior to the start of the season. I said what's really nice about the signings they made is they have a lot of versatility. Is they can go big with a big lineup where you have Taj and Nikola and Gasol and Noah all on the court at the same time, or you can do a small lineup and put Brooks and Rose in at the same time, and you have that versatility, and that's showing now. In the beginning of the season, when they were playing well, they had the bigs, and now
Rose wasn't playing every game then, so he missed more than he played early on, but Yeah, no, watching both of them play at the same time, it was so good because like when one was getting double teamed, the other one was basically driving in. He couldn't be stopped because whoever was guarding him sucked.
Yeah, and Rose is finally starting to hit stride, where he seems not tentative when he goes to the lane. He's going much stronger, and
It's so unfortunate we lost 2 years of him. He's such an amazing player, and I won't take back what I said before. It's a bad contract. It is. We lost 2 years of it. It's a bad contract, but he's so good. Like when he's playing, like yeah,
but
it's
even
great.
when he came back in first couple weeks of the season, is you'd watch him and he sort of looked like himself, but he wasn't quite there. You'd see him be able to breeze by somebody through the lane, and he wasn't finishing, or he would go once he got there, he would contort his body to avoid the contact.
Yeah, I think that's what was different between then and what's happening now. Before, when he drive to the lane, he'd awkwardly throw his body in some direction. Now he's really just focused on drives to lane and makes the good shot. Like his body isn't going out of control. It's contained. And maybe it was to avoid contact, or maybe it was to make contact. I don't know. But now he's just looking great. He's looking, man, this team's looking. Paul Gasol's, 10 double-doubles in a row now?
Yeah,
or
and the nice thing is if you can keep everybody healthy, you can keep, you could cut into Gasol's playing time here and there to give him a rest. Cough what the Spurs do. Cough.
Who
What I'm
cares?
saying is give the Spurs, give their veterans a rest so they're fresh in the playoffs. And now the Bulls have the depth to be able to do that, hopefully, and still have the Thibodeau have confidence deep enough in the bench that he'll give people playing time off.
We have to pour a little for Tony Snell because he looks like the odd man out, and I like Tony Snell. But, I mean, what are you gonna do?
And the frustrating thing about Tony Snell is, I understand last year, but in the D League or in the developmental league, when he played really, really well, and he hasn't done anything wrong this season that I've seen that to warrant him losing the confidence of Thibodeau.
I don't think it's that. I think there's just no room. Like what are you gonna do? Not play Butler? Like Butler's going to be an all-star this year.
And they need to sign Butler. They really do.
I mean, they're going to overpay for him. But the good thing about overpaying for him is we'll see if Reinsdorf does this. They might go over the luxury tax next year, but because there's going to be such an increase in the salary cap the following year, they won't be multiple years over the cap. So we'll see if Reinsdorf does that.
And the thing is with Butler is nobody can do a poison pill contract with him.
Sorry for sounding stupid.
Oh,
what does
so
that mean?
You know what they did with
with
Omer
with
Sheik
Omer.
is because I was just reading up on this, is based on his the Bulls have his bird rights, so they can't do a poison pill because the Bulls can fully match any contract. So it would be there would be no difference in the way contract was structured. So they nobody can do a poison pill to steal him away. It's just going to be all they have to do is match best contract or offer him straight out the best contract.
All I can say is, dude's going to get paid. He gambled right. Like, he is going to get paid, and good for him. Like, you love those stories. Like, the whole Jimmy Butler story is phenomenal. How he even became a basketball player and got to the NBA.
And it's just, and he's done something I really like, is he was like, all right, I'm really good at playing defense. I'm in good condition. I can play an entire 48 minutes. And then he worked on his offense. And it's
the confidence level for him coming out and saying, I'm going to gamble on myself. I'm going to do that because I believe in myself. That's, you love seeing, like, your leaders should be like that always. Your leaders should be, I'm and give Rose a lot of credit. He thinks this all the time. I'm the best. You know, Michael Jordan talked about himself in third person. That's how cocky he was about how great he was. So, I mean, you love it. Hopefully the Bulls pay the money. I'd be pretty upset if they don't.
I feel like if they don't, the reason is going to be is that they're ready to part ways with Thibodeau, because you can't create harmony with your head coach and get rid of his guy.
This guy, well, it will be the second one they'll get rid of. Remember, Dang was his guy too.
You know, he at least had Butler there anyway, and you know you can't get rid of, and especially the way Butler's playing is if you get rid of him, basically you're either being cheap or you're slapping your head coach in the face.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, all things are pointing to hopefully they keep him, and you know the season's awesome, man. It's fun to watch. They're a fun team to watch. Like every game is exciting. The way they just dominated Portland, and mind you, the first half of that game, every time LaMarcus Aldridge scored, and I don't know, you didn't watch the game on Friday.
I haven't DVR'd. I just I was out and about Friday and Saturday.
So sorry to give this away, but LaMarcus Aldridge could not miss a shot in the first half, and Taj was on him like glue, and he was still making everything. He was making 3-pointers. He was doing everything. And every time he made a shot, I'm like, isn't that the guy we traded Tyrese Thomas for? Or 4 times Thomas? Like, and he had like 20-something points at the end of the first half. And but the Bulls were winning. And the Bulls basically, no matter what. And then in the second half, Damian Lillard got hot, started making threes left and right. Didn't matter. Bulls still were like, no, we're going to win this game. Both you guys can go off and score over 30 points. We're still going.
And it's and the nice thing is the East is a completely winnable conference.
I think this is gonna sound a bit cocky, and it's very anti-Gary, I might add. Dude, it is, if they're not one of the favorites to win the championship, at least by the All-Star break, then I don't know what a good
because
team is.
I think the Bulls are a better team than Cleveland. And Cleveland manhandled Washington and Toronto. And
Bulls beat Toronto too.
There's no Miami Heat of the last few years in this conference that.
Oh, even the West though. The only team that scares me is San Antonio.
You're not scared of Golden State?
No, I'm not.
They whipped our butt. They're 20-2. They're 20-2.
But
they're on a 15-game winning streak.
But they don't have, their bigs aren't that good. And come playoff time, come that, shooting teams don't win. You need people that can get, the teams that win have those guys that can get in the paint and score.
But besides them in the West, Golden State is a good team. Whether or not,
they're a great team.
Memphis is a good team.
7-game series, the Bulls match.
Memphis is a really good team. San Antonio you can never count out because
Dallas is a good team. Dallas beat the Bulls.
San Antonio is just, they're wily and well coached, and they play really well. And the Clippers are a team that everyone was one of the favorites going into the season, and they had a rough patch at the beginning, but they're finding their way. They're back to 16-7.
So when I say none of the teams scare me, that's not saying that they can't beat the Bulls. That's just saying that going into a series, I would feel confident the Bulls had a chance to win.
Oh, absolutely. There's no team like with the Miami Heat. There was that air above it that you can't beat this team. Even if you could win a game here or there in a series, you felt you really in the deep down, there's no way you thought you could beat Miami.
If everything lined up correctly.
If by lining up correctly you mean LeBron got hurt, then but it's that that team doesn't exist. And sure, there's teams that could beat the Bulls in a 7-game series, and there's several of them, but there's no team. I don't think that the Bulls could in a playoff series match up against and be dominated and not have a chance or not feel like they have a chance.
Sure. No, I agree.
And that's the differences, and especially in the Eastern Conference, is because they they played awful basketball last year, and they got blindsided by Washington. And the Bulls are much better this year, much more confident, and have a healthy Derrick Rose. And
a much better Jimmy Butler, and much better power forward, and much better bench, and everything about it. It's like,
yeah, I don't fear Washington. Toronto's got a very good ball club, and I'm not afraid of them. And Cleveland, sure, Cleveland's got the new big three, but I'm not afraid of them at all. How many losing streaks have they been on already this season? They're what are the 22 games in the season? They've already had like 4 multi-game losing streaks.
Well, they're already starting to trend to what they were before when they had LeBron, which was LeBron scoring 40 points and doing everything. And actually, you want that. You don't want Kevin Love to be averaging 25 to 30 points. You don't want Kyrie Irving to be that good. You want it to be the LeBron James show. So, and they're kind of trending towards that now, that LeBron is the man, because he got sick of losing. And you saw what happened. They went on an 8-game winning streak or something. And he was phenomenal during that 8-game winning streak. But so he can do that, right? They're a good team with him, but like you want in a 7-game series, what I'm trying to say is, in a 7-game series, you want him to be the only guy scoring. The reason why the Heat were so good was because the rest of the team was great defensively, and then you had guys like Norris Cole was putting up points.
Yeah, here we go. So the season is only like 22 games in for them, and they've already had 3 multi-game losing streaks. They started off the season 0-2, then they went on a 4-game losing streak, and they're currently on a 2-game losing streak. Thanks for being on, Gary. And
as my wife says,
and we're gonna have to do this sooner rather than later, so we don't have to run on for an hour and a half.
Well, that's going to wrap it up for this edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. Thanks for checking us out. Make sure that if you are listening, subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher or however you listen to your podcasts. If you're listening on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. Give us high ratings. If you want to, leave a review. We like those too. Contact us. Spread the show. Tell other people about it. But we really want to thank you for listening. So that's it until next week. And thanks for checking us out. Until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van. And she looks like...
Remember, New Yorkers, smoking crack is not legal on planes. Bears 31 to -7. The Bears.
Oh, when the Bears